What's up, boys and girls, Lambo here, and in today's video I'm gonna go over a game I played today against Cure in the Stay at Homestorycup. Since the Stay at Homestorycup is going on the entire day, I'm not streaming during it, and that's why we don't have a Try Hard Thursday video exactly, so it's not gonna be my point of view, but I obviously try-harded since it was a tournament game, so I'm just gonna go over the replay for now, and it was a pretty cool game. A nice ZVT that ended up in late game, so we're gonna see the Lurker, that Lingbane into Lurker style, and then we're gonna see how to fight against the Mass Ghost Liberators in the late game, how to trade with Broodlord and Faster Viper. So let's zoom through the early game a little bit. I scouted around the map here with the Overlords. You can scout for pretty much everything with 2 Overlords. You can see my first one goes like this, the second one goes like this. And I've prepared a little bit for Cure. I'm still in the off-season, so I haven't practiced at all. But I watched a bunch of recent tournament performances of Cure, which he is definitely a top player. And he also plays a lot of online stuff, so I had a lot of VODs to work with. And he has a very distinct playstyle, and he has very honestly very few build orders only, so it was very easy for me to prepare for him. I just played super standard though, so I'm opening up with 3 hatch. This is the opening I like to go for the most. 27 Overlord and then 28 hatchery is usually what I do with 4 links. Slightly delayed speed, but speed and time. Yeah, this was the first series of... That was the first match of the series as well, so it's 0-0 at this point. And now the first thing I did was I scouted with a Zergling. At the timing I knew his Hellions would move out. So I already set this up much before, and now I know his Hellions are out, so I just ran in with the Zergling. This is just something that you need to know, but even if I didn't, because I didn't want to put my Overlord here since it's scouted for proxy access, and then I just would like to put it here. I already know it's 3cc because he has no depots at the front, so I confirmed this. I see it's 3cc Banshee. Cure, every game I watched of him when he went 3cc was also gonna go Banshee, so my response was against this to just go for a standard lair early on, and then we're just taking early forward base, and then we just play a standard games against queens pretty much. I do believe, by the way, that having 2 different queen control groups is very good, the way Rainer is doing it, but as I said before, I haven't practiced in the last couple of weeks. I only played on stream, and on the ladder is mostly games against Protoss as well. But even those games are not the most efficient ways of practicing, because I can't really focus when I'm commentating, so... yeah, my practice is not the best going into this, but I would just go with what I know and what I've played throughout all the years. Here I was slightly out of position because I saw the benches here, I thought he was going to go to the natural. He didn't catch his 3 drones, but the setup is quite simple. You have 2 queens and an overseer hotkey. 1 queen in the natural, 3 spore crawlers. And either you leave 1 queen here to inject and have 4 at the front, or I have 5, and I spread the creep a lot. This is my 4th base, and very soon I'm also going to take a 5th base. Preferably, we're already at 67 drones, so we're going failing speed first, and then double evo upgrades. You can see these time out decently with when I have the gas for it. So our upgrades are slightly behind, but our economy is slightly ahead. This is very standard stuff. Now, one thing I noticed when watching Cure's videos is when he doesn't go for many Hellions, he usually always goes for tanks. Sometimes if he goes for the Hellbat timings, he skips tanks. So he does this 3cc Banshee sometimes with a Hellbat attack, sometimes without. That's why I morphed some blind Banelings this game. And now he goes for a big push. And... yeah, I didn't look perfectly here, but basically what you need to do against these timings is set up a surround. And I wanted to go before these reinforcements hit, because when I watched the replays, he would always go with the first 2 medevacs and with 1 or 2 tanks. And then he would wait for a little bit for a counterattack and then run. So what I wanted to do was hit the timing before all these tanks arrive. But I missed that timing, so instead I just waited for my 1-1 to be done. And to see if he moves a little bit on creep. And as you can see here, we're coming in here from the with a surround, which is very, very important. Get decent focus fire on the Banelings, but I mean, this was about an even trade. He traded a little bit better before that. And now we're going into Hive and Lurkers. From a relatively even position, he straight ahead went into 2 factory tanks, which I didn't expect, actually. I thought maybe if he sees me to just stay on Ling Bane, he would go into Widow Mines. I realized way too late. After the first 2 games, I realized that the best side against him is to just go Ling Bane into Ultra, but I played the 3rd game very poorly. Spoiler alert, I will lose that series 1-2. And yeah, I made that adjustment, but I played it too poorly, so we drone up, we get 6 bases. Always when you have the minerals, just take extra bases, especially once you hear a push like that, try to drone up at least 88 drones, and then take extra bases, and when you have the minerals for it, you can also just take multiple bases, so it doesn't hurt as much if you lose one side. And now it's becoming a multitasking battle against a Korean Terran, which Korean Terrans are usually very good at. Right, still spraying creep, and now we have Lurkers. And I wanted to mine this base out very early on, because this one is very hard to hold. And I figured if I have Lurkers, I can just position some here with some spores and some spines, and it will be super hard for him to break. Now the problem I have with this map, the way the Koreans are playing it, is you don't really have a good position to counterattack in, because his main army is going to be positioned here. So if you run by here, your units are gonna die to tanks here, and usually they also have a sensor tower here. So run by even to the natural, where the army is gonna be here, some tanks are gonna be here, is very rough. So my game plan was quite simple. I'll just try to mine out my map as early as possible, and then I wanted to just start trading. I did not expect him to just sit back and relax and play late game, maybe a little bit Maru-esque, but a lot of Koreans, when stuff starts going wrong, they just start camping. So here's the setup that I was talking about earlier. I have a couple of Lurkers here, and some spines and some spores, and this can hold off so much bio by itself. It's a very supply efficient way of dealing with this. I'm sorry, I didn't press accept. Okay, here we are. So he traded well here. We have multiple different hotkeys for our army. We have some units here, left some units here, we have some units here. This is how TVZ is supposed to be played. I think I could have taken these bases slightly earlier, but I was fighting for creep. And now it looks like we're in a fantastic position, right? But what is the game plan now? Because he doesn't take this base. We cannot really run in here. He has a sensor tower that gives him quite the warning. Theoretically, looking at this right now, I think I maybe could have tried blowing this base up with Ling Bane, but it's super hard to make that judgment call. Other things you can do if you actually really want to break a Terran player is you can try to double Nidus in their main base. If they don't see that in time, very often Lurker Niduses can be deadly, absolutely deadly. But if they camp like this, usually what I suggest that especially players below Grandmaster level do is they just go for Ling Bane base composition, maybe some Ultras, maybe some Vipers for Blinding Cloud, and then they wait until the Terran takes this base, and then just engage, remix, engage, remix, engage. But it hasn't worked out too hot for me in the past, and once I noticed that this was what Kuro was going for, I ended up going for Spires for a Greater Spire transition eventually. So yeah, it's a very passive game. There is stuff going on all the time. So yeah, there's some multitasking going on, but it's not strategically valuable information for you guys. I will drop the replay down below if you guys want to see all of it from my point of view. Of course, now I also try to, when you're ahead, this is a very good thing to do, especially if you have creep here. Take bases of your opponents, because there's a lot of resources tied up in bases that if you mine from a base that your opponent is supposed to have, it basically counts double, because he won't have it and you will have these extra resources. So since I already noticed this game is going very late, I'm trying to establish that base, going for some abducts. I heard the casters ask why don't we just go for more Vipers, because you could see they can abduct some ghosts here. The reason is quite simple. Vipers cost a lot of supply, and they can just get EMP'd, and very often they can get sniped. If I don't have Lurkers in position, and if the Vipers go slightly too far forward, it's EMP plus snipe, and it's lights out for the Vipers. They're very expensive, so I wouldn't suggest anyone to make more than 4 Vipers necessarily when playing this style. So we're obviously still outmining him, but now that he has this setup, it's very, very hard. Once the Terran takes more bases, that means he has less tanks, but Pure had 15 tanks, so it is very hard to find any position without tank coverage. Very, very hard, in fact. So we're fighting for this. I don't want him to have this one for free, that's for sure. And now we end up taking an engagement. And he saw us pre-splitting, so he also brought his units in position, and they were going in with some blinding clouds. I maybe could have tried blowing up the base, but I kind of want to trade out the lurkers anyways. Overall, resource loss looks good for the Terran, but this, in my eyes, is good for me, because my game plan is keeping him from taking this base. And one base has about approximately 20,000 resources, I believe. So, if you just trade 7k wars, for now that's still good, because later on it's also going to be easier to find better trades. But Kuro actually is a very good late game player, so... Yeah, I was going to remax one more time on the Ling Bane, trying to kill this base. So that's what I did here. He had good splits on the Ghost, so this was again not very efficient. But I just wanted to trade out, and now he did something really sick. Which I thought was like a questionable move by itself, but he actually started moving out. And if I just remixed again on Ling Bane, I'm not sure if he knew what my bank looked like, but we could have crushed this army. This army is not very good against Ling Bane. But he somehow smelled that we were going for a Broodlord transition. Now he scans the spores, and he will probably realize. The problem with the Broodlords usually is that they're not very mobile, but since we have this on lockdown, and this is gonna be mined out very soon, going for Broodlord and faster makes a lot of sense. So against camping Terran players, that just sit there with mass tanks, going for Broodlords is very, very good. Now the big problem that I've had was that I did not have enough supply open to morph a big Broodlord army with Corruptors as well, because I also needed something against the Liberators. So I was struggling a little bit to hold my bases here. We're at this point 10k resources behind, which as I said before is still fine. It's still in fine territory. Now the way you micro Broodlord Corruptor Viper, if we go into my vision real quick, is... first of all, let's go through the hotkeys. I lost all my queens, so usually there's a queen hotkey at 5 here. 1 is my main army, my ground army, my Ling Bane Hydra force. 2 are my Infestors, 3 are my Vipers plus Corruptors, 8 are my Broodlords, and 5 are usually my queens, which are very good, especially later on if you float minerals, you can make queens instead of links and then start transfusing. Which can be very nice. Very often Broodlords live with low HP because they don't die to one snipe, so... It can be very good, and then the way you control this is you need to make sure to not have the Vipers too far in the front. You want to corrosive bile if there's bunched up units, and you want to always have one Infestor at the same height as the Broodlords. Otherwise, unless there are already Broodlings out, Ghosts can just snipe down the Broodlords. So we're trying to poke here, and you can see me never having all my Infestors at the front clamped up together. That's the #1 mistake how you lose the fight. If everything gets EMP'd, you have nothing to cancel the snipes. So we're looking out to not do that. You get some snipes here. This is why this one Infestor should have been slightly more forward, so I could have caught that. But it's also the biggest problem against this is the detection, honestly, because you sometimes just can't see everything perfectly. So usually one thing that's missing here are the spore crawlers, because he simply just killed them, and I lost all my creeps right here. So I kind of have to fight without the spores. There were some micro errors here, but we killed a bunch of Liberators for it. So we're still 10k resources down. And now I realize, okay, I still have a lot of drones, so I need to start losing parts of my ground army, because my army right now that's actually gonna trade slowly but surely is gonna be 8 Broodlords right now, 12 Corruptors, some Vipers. Pretty sure I'm remaking some. And 7, so like my actual army that's trading is very, very small. 8 Broodlords, 12 Corruptors, 7 Infestors, a couple Vipers. So I want to trade this out, because my opponent also doesn't have that many buy units anymore. He has 10 Marines, 8 Marauders, and I still have this fortified, so I don't really need that big of a mobile army. So I go for a counterattack, maybe hoping to kill a base. If I realized this was an orbital, obviously I would have went there. But I didn't. I just wanted to trade this out for a little bit, so I tried to focus fire some units with it. And now that allows me to get more Corruptors and Broodlords. And not mining from this right now is not that big of a deal. It's all about the trading. So that's why I'm sacrificing these bases over and over again to wait for a good fight. Like once my army is good, I believe that I can, with good micro, take good fights. Because I don't think his army is perfect yet. So he has Liberator, Viking, Ghost, which is pretty much the Terran late game. This Infestor I could have hit a big fungal with. Again, we're splitting the Infestors up one by one. We're going into my vision. So one here, one here. It's very annoying, this ledge. And now I see he's clumped up. I get a fungal. Instantly follow up fungals, parasitic bombs. Do not panic and click 2 forward move command. Just select 2, which is the Infestor hotkey, and then fungal the units one by one. So your Infestors slowly go forward and keep fungling them. Otherwise, they might all get EMP'd and run into tank fire and die. So you can see my Infestors are coming in here one by one to fungal instead of all of them at once. Because you really just want to, you just really need one fungal at a time. You don't need to stack them. So this was a very good fight. We're now not that far behind anymore. He tried to nuke me here. Hit part of my Broodlords, so they were all a little bit low HP now. But he bled out a lot of units, and now we can finally retake these bases. I'm just gonna go into my vision so you guys also can see my camera movement. Your camera should not be here where your army is. Your camera should be ahead to see where the ghosts are. This is very important. So you see, every time I go to my army, immediately I move the camera towards the top left. So I see where the ghosts are coming from. Instead of having your camera like this, it makes it a lot harder than if you're already here, focused with your vision to where your opponent might come from. And as I said before, you can always see I have like 1 or 2 Infestors at the front, never all of them bunched up. You can see he came in here from the side, so I started sieging some Overseers. And I get another fungal here. And again, I just use my Infestors one at a time. Parasitic Bomb. And now he has no Vikings left. So now we can finally start pushing. The reason I didn't push right away, by the way, was because we had no Vipers, I think. Yeah, we had no Viper energy. So we're not on a clock at all right now. Eventually, if we take good fights within the next minute or two, he still will have, we still have the chance to kill this, which will be game deciding. So it's better to just be patient and wait for a good opportunity to take a fight. Which came here with the next fungal, and now I felt like I had enough momentum behind me to go for the fights. I saw this here, the red dot. I'm kiting a little bit with fungals and the Broodlords, and now here we go again. I also couldn't go, I believe, because I didn't have Overseers. But he kept sniping Overseers, which was really good by him. So now again we get a big fungal here, and here it's just Infestor micro, right? And then Parasitic Bomb usage. Because there were barely any Vikings left, I instead decided to abduct the ghosts that were sniping. Abduct does cancel snipe. And now I'm bringing back the rest of my Corruptors. And now I just need to kill the planetaries. And that should be game over. So now we're reinforcing with Zerglings as well. Obviously because we're having the mineral bank. And our army is good that way as well. We got another fungal, which is very nice. If I knew this was an orbital, I would have sent some links there. I saw him trying to counterattack. Obviously he can't because I have Zerglings. And now we just kill the bases. So don't just go to the production, just kill the most exposed bases, usually is the correct call. Unless you're super far behind. Going for the production is usually not the right call. But if you're behind, or if you want to go for a kill move with, let's say, surprise lurkers, that's when you can try to camp a production. Or when you're behind and you're playing Lingbane Mula, you go for a massive counterattack, and then it will force the Terran to base rate. That's where you can go straight to the production, but usually, in games where you're still mining, and you have a clear way of engaging or denying your opponent's mining, this for sure is the way, and this I believe should be the last fight of the game. Okay, he stays in a little bit longer, so we still need to clear these bases. And I want to take this base as well. So we kill this, we kill a bunch of the SCVs. We get another final on the last 3 ghosts that he has. And that is actually game. So that was a pretty dope game. Very, very clear game plan. And it honestly feels very hard on this map to kill a Terran, honestly. This feels even maybe harder than Death Aura, but definitely top 3. So Oxide is the hardest, and then it's either this or Death Aura for me personally. But when they take these bases and then just set it up with the offensive sensor towers, it's very, very hard to find damage. Because usually my game plan was to just start engaging into them, but he had like 20 tanks. So I feel like if I just ran into him, remixed, ran into him again, remixed, ran into him again, I might have just lost the game. So instead, this time, because I played against Cure, and I play against Cure a lot actually. I think every time I get Koreans, usually I only get to Korean Terrans for some reason. I played against him, I believe, in TSL, where I had a game where I was very, very far ahead. Much more than this game. This game I was a little bit ahead, but it was on Oxide where I was very, very far ahead, and I didn't go for that Brutal transition. So if you're very far ahead on a map where you don't think you can break your opponent, this is, I believe, the correct way to play it. I didn't play it perfectly, my crew spread should have been better, and I should have had spores set up. And then in that case, I would have never lost these bases. So that was probably one of the bigger mistakes I made. There were also some macro mistakes in the early game, for sure. But overall, I think a nice game. And if you want to look through all the little multitasking that's happening around the map, like there's constant action, but this is more or less just to give you my thoughts and to talk a little bit more about the strategic part. And I don't want the video to take forever as well, because I know the general audience prefers shorter videos. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm sorry that there hasn't been that many uploads. I've had a lot of issues actually with my new PC, and as of today I'm also having internet issues with the European StarCraft server, so which I don't know how to fix yet. So I'm investing a lot of time in that. And now there's also the Stay at Homestorycup, so there's not going to be streams probably for the next couple of days, because they are on the entire time. But you guys can make sure to check out the Homestorycup itself. It's obviously twitch.tv/TakeTV. And I will also be casting a lot there, for sure. I will be probably casting like 2-3 series a day. So make sure to tune in. I might also do a tweet or two. So if you guys want to not miss me casting, make sure to follow me on Twitter. .com/LamboSC2 or on Instagram, also LamboSC2. Would be dope. I'm also gonna make sure to post it in the stories. I hope you guys enjoyed this game. It's probably the best one I've played today. And yeah, see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.